Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Match 6 of the Highway to the Zima Zone round of 32. I'm here with our restreamer Risley, co-commentator Tower Sheep, and Tracker Acre to bring you this match between Invenerable, rncastro, bigdunka, and penguin8r. Invenerable and rncastro have not played any round of 32 matches yet. Bigdunka is coming in with 3 points already, and penguin8r with 1 point. How about those flags tonight, Tower?
How we doing, everyone? Tonight, we're going with the League flag set, which is the V1, which means our runners are going to need both the Legend and the Adamant in order to forge that crystal. The crystal, of course, is what is needed to change Zeromus into his final form. Moving on from that, we have our key items that are going to be mixed up all over the place between the land of summoned monsters and between the moon bosses. And one of the key items is going to be the pass. Although the important to know, that does not count for those who are going for 10 key items to get that experience boost. So don't be counting that if you're hoping to see some quick experience boosts if they do find the pass.
Right, and we should note these runners are all very experienced with this flag set at this point. They've made it through the qualifiers to get here. And you may think, oh, bigdunka has 3 points already. He is safe. Well, they're going to all play 4 matches total in this round. And not only is it important to get in the top 16 so that you make it, it's important to get it in the top 12 so you don't have to play additional matches. And if you're in the top 4, you get to select your opponents in a snake draft for the next phase of the tournament. So everyone's kind of going to be trying to get the maximum advantage and shoot for those top 4 spots.
Our race should be starting momentarily. I believe we're just waiting for the signal.
Now, this isn't the worst start our runners could get. Palom's pretty useful. It's just we're kind of going to be waiting to see what that second character is to see how fast the opening phases can be played.
Palom is a pretty strong character all throughout this match. I mean, a lot of the community likes to call him the Quake Kid because he learns it at such an early level, especially compared to other black mages such as Rydia, who needs to become an adult, which is quite a bit of questing before she can even have the ability to learn Quake. And it looks like we are off to our start with an Edward as a companion.
You hate to see it, especially since this flag set does not have the spoon flag, which is a community favorite that kind of makes Edward more useful. So he's going to be strictly a bow user, or maybe some early game daggers if we find some.
However, it is important to note that Simbu, one of our community members, has recently been really pushing for Edward in the end game fight, so we might see some really interesting strats if someone tries to pull off his theory that he's got going with his tutorials.
Pretty much everybody going here to make the standard treasure checks in Baron. T3 is the treasure setting, and honestly, you can find some pretty powerful stuff, especially if you can find it early game to knock out the overworld bosses.
And we did get to see the character that is sitting in the inn. It is Tella, and the first of 2 fights will be a Mom Bomb. With a low HP spot, you may actually see them skip the other 2 phases, which are based on the amount of HP that Mom Bomb has percentage-wise. So if they get enough damage in, they may just skip 2 entire phases.
Yeah, the Mom Bomb fight is kind of unique in this randomizer because the HP spot of the boss that would normally be there is taken into account, and then an additional 10,000 HP is added. So if you can burn through that, then you can kind of get through the rest of the fight. Nothing real interesting in these treasure chests so far, but there's still a lot of big checks before we'll see any bosses. Most players are going to go check at least Damsey and Armory.
Looks like we got bigdunka doing a quick check of the vanilla Demus spot, hoping to snipe him, but ends up with Nodin just waving high.
Now with the Telefind in the Baron Inn, Tele does have a lot of utility, especially early game, but is not going to really speed up any fights here in the early game. So we'll see which players believe it's worth it to fight through that Mom Bomb and whatever second battle it is to get Tele. Especially if they need access to weak, that's going to be something they may have to do just for strategy's sake.
And Stormy was asking in chat if that was Valvalis in the waterfall, which is the Octomom vanilla spot, and it was indeed Valvalis deciding she needed a nice shower with that shiny hair.
Our runners have got to be happy about finding that, because knowing you don't have to fight Valvalis anywhere else is a big relief. Very troublesome.
Yeah, Valvalis is known for wrapping herself in her hair, which makes her have extremely high magic evasion, and it makes it very hard early game to deal with her, because a lot of damage will come from magic. It looks like penguin8r has climbed up the back of Hobbs to find Porum and is fighting the CPU for it. Unfortunately, he has taken out both of the attacker and defender helpers, so he is going to end up getting the Globe 9/9, which always does quad 9. It always does high damage, I should say.
Yeah, I think he's hoping to take it out before it can start spamming that with the twin spell, but didn't quite make it before they start coming down.
One of the popular strategies is to take out the defender first, and especially with the white mage that you're being given there, just out heal the flat 10% damage that the attacker core will do, because it always is a percentage based attack, so as long as you have someone who can heal, you can probably just survive it.
Yeah, as long as you have a source of healing, CPU is almost a free fight. It's just at certain spots it's going to take a long time to do it the intended way. It would be nice to pick up this twin, though, not just for the white magic, but also because the twin spell itself is a very easy way to cheese overworld boss fight.
It looks like we have the Dark Imps at the Antlion spot. Very interesting to see if Invenerable finds anything worthwhile behind these Imps. It's important to note that they do not have the boss bit, although he just uses a Zeus Wrath and takes them right out. But they do not have a boss bit, as well as some others. He gets a Twin Harp for his troubles down in the Antlion Cave.
Yeah, and this is where you see the power of those Japanese version exclusive items. Even just the damage version items instead of the special use items can be very powerful, especially in the overworld. A lot of good strategies for early game use.
It looks like rncastro has decided to try to use Twin Magic, but unfortunately, when fighting the CPU, it will cast a wall on itself, and even Twin Magic can be reflected back at you. So it becomes a very hard fight when you have no physical damage.
We see the Twin Harp. Of course, that's the fan favorite. We get that randomized 8-bit remixed music there if they go check that. I don't think anyone would be going to check it right now because their party's not quite ready, but a lot of our runners enjoy doing that, even though it's a little bit of a longer check usually.
And here we see penguin8r checking a couple weapon shops, probably hoping to find a bow and arrow for Edward so that he can take that CPU down. Looks like he's gonna go check whoever it is in the bed there. You need the Sand Ruby. It's another one of the twins. I could not tell which, though.
We did have some questions in the chat about the twin spell. You are right that Comet cannot be reflected, but Flare can. The problem with Twin is you don't get to select which spell is going to come out, so you can't predict if you're about to destroy yourself or not.
It would seem that all of our runners are at least giving the old college try to taking out the CPU. And the thing that you mentioned earlier is these are very experienced runners, so they may have tricks up their sleeves a lot of other people wouldn't even think to try.
Yeah, and we see Invenerable, they're going with a more traditional strategy, and we'll probably be taking down the CPU here pretty short.
And bigdunka apparently has found a very nice early game item in the Dancing Dagger, and he is using it as an item which allows you to throw it for around 300 to 400 damage a pop, which at such an early boss fight, that's a large chunk of its health that he's taken out each time he uses it. He now has his white mage.
Yes, the Dancing Dagger is a staple in the vanilla Final Fantasy IV speedrun, so if you're familiar with that, you know kind of the little outmoded power for what would be normally just a pass-up item.
Looks like we have some other runners checking shops, and penguin8r's given another try to get his white mage up and on his team. Let's hope he gets a little bit better luck this time.
Castro's finding Star Veils and Life Potions in Troya, so Life Potions are pretty much a staple that every runner is going to want to need. Star Veils are very nice to have since we have not yet seen Wyvern or Golbez.
And we see Invenerable giving us what looks to be our first look into Fabul. A lot of runners, if possible, will try to avoid going to Fabul early because Yang's wife is at the top of one of the towers, and should you be able to go underground, you can get one key item from her. If you find the pan and wake him up with it, you can get 2 key items, and the runner started with the pan. So if they were able to get underground before coming here, they could potentially have one stop for 3 key items.
Yeah, Fabul can definitely have some good value if you do all the checks at once, but at this point, they kind of know that Baron Inn's a little ugly for not a lot of reward in Tella, so I can definitely see almost all of our runners going for this check this time.
Baron Inn would also be the, as you mentioned, a hard fight, and very, very few people actually enjoy scaling Mount Ordeals because it is 3 boss fights. You may have to fight some lunar bosses, you may have to fight, my favorite is the Fabul Gauntlet up there, because then it just really drags out Mount Ordeal, so most runners will do their best to just avoid it.
We get Mylon at Fabul, so not super dangerous at this point for Inven. So I think we'll be seeing what's at Fabul here pretty shortly.
It's important to know that one of the fun things about Mylon is every time you attack him, he casts Lightning 1. So in a spot where all of the damage is physical, such as the vanilla Fabul Gauntlet, his Lightning 1 is more so just a little nuisance than anything else because it's just going to keep doing 1 damage. So you're just free reign. It just takes up time for him to keep casting it.
Yes, and to add on to some boss scaling knowledge here, Supremacy in chat mentioned that Twin Harp would be very hard with this team. That's true because the boss in Cave Magnus has very high magic defense. And as you can see, we've got kind of a magic-heavy team. Even that Dancing Dagger uses magic defense when calculating damage, so it's ooh.
It looks like the King of Fabul was holding on to the tower key after they were nice enough to remove Mylon from his castle.
Not useful now, but good that our runners won't have to double dip tower later.
Yeah, when they manage to get underground, the tower is where the darkings normally are, and that's actually usually a pretty free fight by the time they get down there, because it's a very low HP spot. Although there can be a few kind of trolley bosses down there, usually it's not too bad because you could just go hard on them and take them down really quick before they become a problem.
And if you haven't watched this randomizer very often, first off, you should. It's amazing. Secondly, what our runners are actually looking for right now is access to the underground, which is required in this type of game because you need access to Copal's shop to forge the crystal once you find the other required key items. And also, it opens up a heck of a lot of checks. To get underground, they need either the hook or the magma key. Magma key being preferred because it's faster and you get to skip a difficult boss spots.
So it seems that right now our runners are going to end up with one of three choices. Either they can try their luck at the magic defense heavy twin harp cave, which with their current party is a scary thought. They can chance the Baron in, which is meant to be a much higher level fight. Or, as I mentioned earlier, they could climb everyone's favorite Mount Ordeals.
Yeah, and the problem they're going to run into here is there's really, with the key items they currently have available, there's no more character checks available to them. They need either the hook to get another character check in Cave Evelyn, or they need to get underground to be able to check Dwarf Castle. Or they need to find the Earth Crystal to be able to get the double character check in Zot. So they're kind of very low on options here. They have no good physical attackers right now. They're kind of relying on low-level twins and Edward, which are not very fast at getting battles done with.
Another important note for those of you who have not played this before or are unsure of what's going on, the pass is a key item, which you just saw. Nobody has it, but Invenerable went into Toria's shops, and what is normally a little area behind the bar once you get it, in this randomizer, it has become a quick way to the final fight. So if you have the crystal and the pass, you do not need to go on that long journey across the moon and down underground in the lunar subterranean. You can just go straight to that final fight from Earth.
Penguin8r having to use a heartbreaking exit to get out of Troya. The town lady at the entrance kind of blocked him off, and it's still faster to cast that long animation spell than wait for her to get out of your darn way.
There are two of the greatest NPCs in this game. One of them is that lady in Troya, and the other is in Kaipo. There's an old lady in the inn who loves to stand in your way and block you inside of the inn. And how very nice of Invenerable to most likely show us who I'm talking about once he goes and checks this twin in the bed.
Now you may be thinking, well, they've already got Palom and Forum, so why would they even want the other twin? If they happen to have Sand Ruby, which is what allows you to recruit that character, it's still useful because you can use the twin spell with any set of twins you have. So if you have 3 twins, you can actually spam twin extremely quickly. It's very surprising how quick you can get casts of it off.
So as we see with bigdunka, he has found Mr. D-Mist, and that is very important in this flag set because that will trigger Radia's mother to decide it's time to suntan, and when you talk to her, she will give you one of the key items. But the thing is, because the bosses are random, he can be anywhere. So you may not see D-Mist, or he may be hiding something behind Iridia's mother.
Yeah, and at this point, I would say a lot of our runners are going to find that D-Mist now because they're running out of checks on the overworld and still no hook or a magma key in sight. Invenerable is actually trying the Baron in now, and we may see the progression key item here, and we're going to get Tella and the second boss.
It looks like Penguin8r has also found his demist, but unfortunately it seems Ordeals is being blocked by a rather nasty boss in Bygone. He is another boss who likes to cast wall on himself, and with a bunch of magic heavy user, he's gonna have to rely on that dancing dagger to do all of his damage. Unless he gets lucky and gets a combat, as he just did.
Yeah, this is a little rough because this is a high physical attacking spot for this point in the game to get the back attack with Bygone, who's also like a physical rushing attacker. Now, at least they can knock the arms off so that they kind of limit the damage coming in, but they get resurrected pretty quickly.
I believe on his next turn, after his arms die, he gets to revive both of them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with this party, these bosses, and the required checks so far, a lot of novice players would be getting stonewalled here, but you can see no one so far is really having too much trouble with these checks.
And you see Invenerable deciding to hide his Edward and use the illusion spell on his twins. The illusion spell will allow him to dodge the next 2 physical attacks. Follows that up with one of the hourglasses, which will stop the bombs as they do not have the boss spit, which prevents status effects from affecting a boss.
Yeah, and you might think, well, why doesn't he just keep Edward hidden until these bombs all explode? Well, first off, they need a target to explode on, so you need to be out for it. And secondly, there's another boss fight right after this, so if he starts that boss fight with just Edward, that's not going to be a good way to go. So going to get everybody filled up beforehand, which is good that if you get this hourglass off and make that happen, give it enough time to kind of, get ready for the next fight, which has significantly more health.
It looks like he finds a pale dim, and inside of Ordeals, we have a D-Lunar fight. That is very interesting because should you choose to cast magic on them, it will trigger a script which will cause both D-Lunars to cast wall on themselves and virus, but luckily due to the low HP spot, a single cast of twin magic took both of them out.
Yes, and we get the hook on Ordeals too, so at this point, that could be the way to go, and or there could still be a Magma Key here in Baron Inn, we're not sure, but hook here on Ordeals, we now have progression, so bigdunka is going to be able to go and get underground. Unfortunately, the boss in Upper Babel, which is the dungeon you're going to use, is pretty tough sometimes, depending on who it is, so we're hoping for a good character in Cave Evelyn on the way there.
Hopefully it gives him a little bit of physical damage too. And if he can manage to make it past both those bosses, as I mentioned earlier, he has the pan. He can both get the key item from the Sylph Cave, wake Yang up, and then he can turn both Yang's location and the pan into Sheila back in Fabul and get 2 more key items from her. So he's got potential to make a lot of progress. And it looks like Invenerable, for all his troubles in Baron, has gotten the Sand Ruby.
Ouch. I mean, it does give another character, but not exactly what we wanted to see. I do see chat asking about sirens. You may be wondering, why is that important? Well, there are some really good fights you can get pretty much free EXP from in this game if you happen to have a Japanese version specific item called Sirens, which in this flag set can be available in stores for purchase. That's going to be kind of a strategy most of our players are going to use if they can find Sirens. And with underground access, it makes the Sirens more valuable because the main grind fight, which would be with eggs in the underground, is you have to have underground access to get it. So.
And what could be progress or could just be another tough boss fight, the demist item check gives the Baron key, which will allow the runners to run into Baron Castle through the town, and it'll also open up the weapon and armor shop in Baron should they choose to try to find some better armor for their team.
I'm guessing Dunka might actually check the Baron key first, just because the levels are not great right now for upper Babel. So doing more boss fights and doing more checks may be the way to go right now.
Got a lot of the runners, due to a lack of really openness of the seed, it's pretty much forcing them all down similar paths right now.
And that's the thing. Once the runners get underground, it's going to open up a lot, because not only does it open up a lot of checks, but it opens up grinding potential. And with 2 Palums available, that can increase your damage output a lot. Once you get Quake, it kind of trivializes a lot of the underground content. Baron Castle may also be a good move, because it's once again another character check, although it's one of the longest character checks available.
It would appear that penguin8r has finished his mount ordeals and is making the long walk down, and bigdunka is having not so great of a time with the pale dim. Got a lot of people injured or on their way out, so he's looking to recover from that, which he should be able to do without too much of a struggle.
Yeah, it looks like our runners are finally starting to converge and overlap each other as the direction of the seed is becoming clear. We have everyone is now checking ordeals or has already checked ordeals, so it's looking very much like a hook seed, and all of our runners are going to converge on upper Babel here very shortly.
bigdunka is picking up his Tella, which a very important thing to note is that Tella will now have all his spells. Having completed mount ordeals, he remembers everything he used to know. While he does not get Quake, he does get some pretty powerful black magic, which will help him if he runs into someone weak to one of the elements, but it will not help him any more than it would have in fighting that Twin Heart battle.
And we were talking about utility on Tella before, and utility is definitely what we're looking for, because once underground access is achieved, you can also make the egg grind fights pretty much risk-free and very fast with the stone spell, which Tella does get. So, you know, it's that's just another feather in the cap, and it's going to speed them up once they get underground. It's getting there that's going to be the question.
I don't know if bigdunka meant to do that or not, but I don't believe he used a Sand Ruby. I think he accidentally used the tower key on his sleeping Palom and did not get the extra twin.
So hope for a save here at some point, and we'll see when Duncan discovers that this has happened, or if he meant to do it. You never know.
Right, he already has 4 of the characters, so he may have said, you know what, let me see who's down in the cave so I don't have to go through the dialogue of dismissing them.
Only mute bells in a Cave Evelyn shop. Heartbreaking.
Another quick grind that he may choose to do is using the life glitch on the stone golems that are down here if he opens the wrong chest. Looks like we have a Rosa, which is another white mage. This seed is very, very magic heavy, and Edward.
Oh yeah, these mages. But we do get Bahamut revealed as the upper Babel boss, which is usually a scary boss. But we've seen Star Veils are available, which is going to make this boss fight free. And Big Dunk is the only one that knows that right now, and I can imagine is going to go straight to the underground now. No more above ground checks for Big Dunk.
It looks like this seed will answer one of the community's favorite questions. Which white mage do you prefer? Both Horum and Rosa are white mages, and it's a bit of a community hotspot who it is each runner likes to have in their party.
Ooh, I shouldn't comment too heavily on this, so I'll just say there's a definite, clear, correct choice.
I'll be that guy. I'm gonna say that Rosa is always the correct choice, just because I've always liked Rosa. From the time I played this when I was a kid, it's all about Rosa. And as we see,
using the hourglass here to advantage. The Mad Ogre fight is actually one of the highest EXP fights on the overworld. There's one here, and there's another one with not quite as many ogres in Castle Eblin. So gonna see some life glitches here. That's where you kill an enemy, use a life potion on it before it disappears. It comes back with 0 health, dies again, you get the EXP twice.
looks like we have rncastro checking the vanilla Mist Dragon spot and realizing, oh, I've already killed him. There's not going to be any value to me fighting whoever it is that's down there. As well as Penguin8r has also decided to take the... Oh, he actually went to the Baron key. So he's checking to see who it is going to be behind the Baron checks. He might be hoping for a magma key just to avoid Cave Eblon altogether.
Yeah, I think the only way this pays off for Penguin8r is if there's a magma key here, just to save the time walking through. Now that we know that there's that free boss, although of course Penguin8r does not know that, it would be the way to leapfrog right now is if this is magma key, or if there happens to be a really good character here like a Fusoya or an Edge.
Yeah, if there is a physical character, pretty much any of them would be a huge asset to this team because they have the Twin Heart, but nobody can use it. So should they get that physical character, they may be able to dive in, considering he's going to have 2 white mages to keep that character alive while he does all the damage.
Yeah, and it could open more checks. I mean, we have the Odin check here. Of course, Penguin8r's party isn't really ready for the Odin spot unless it happens to be a free boss. But it could be a chain that leads to required items, and if no one else goes to check Baron until the very end, that could put Penguin8r ahead, although it would be apparent right now.
Penguin8r playing the fun game of what do I throw out from my inventory because I don't know who's going to be in my final team.
Yeah, inventory management is very, very important in this randomizer. We have been merciful to our runners here. We do have the flags on where, quote unquote, bad equipment will be replaced with gold in chests. That's just to limit the inventory management for just trash equipment. But there's still a lot you have to do, and it's kind of important. You can waste a lot of time screwing around with your inventory.
And Penguin8r finds Karate, masquerading as the King of Baron. With all of the illusions he already has in his inventory, he should be able to win this fight.
Yeah, not too bad, and we'll get to see the character check and the key item check and see Penguin8r is going to be rewarded. Meanwhile, Big Dunk is finding Dr. Luge in the first spot of the tower. This is a pretty low HP spot, so I think we'll probably be able to get through here even with just some lit 2s.
invenerable also deciding that Baron is the play and not to go underground.
This is a very cool seed now because we've got our racers taking very differing paths at this point, and it's going to determine straight up who can maybe make a play for the lead, depending on what we end up finding either once we get underground or what we find in Baron Cast. And I guess we can talk now a little bit just due to the party makeup. There's two major strats to defeat the final boss, Zeromus. One is using physical attackers who are berserked in order to deal quick damage and limit Zeromus's turns. And then the other strategy is to use wall on your party and bounce spells onto Zeromus. With this party, I think, unless we happen to find a lot of physical attackers very quickly, you're going to see almost everyone using reflex strats, which has the bonus of skipping Zeromus's HP refill.
It's important to know, as you said, it will skip his refill because when you reflect magic off of a wall, it does not trigger any scripts. So if you have an enemy that will counterattack you when you use magic, bouncing the magic off of a wall does not trigger that, and that's why it will not trigger the script to refill the health.
And while we were while we were talking about that, we found out this is actually a fake hook seed. It was the magma key in Baron Castle. Just like we said, penguin8r now going to leapfrog into the front, going to go straight underground and beat bigdunka down there.
And it looks like penguin8r has had the option at least for a second Tela. I missed whether or not he took that Tela, but he at least had that option.
Yeah, so bigdunka and penguin8r are going to end up underground pretty neck and neck. Dunka's still got to get through this Bahamut battle, of course. And just the only difference is Dunka would have access to Rosa and penguin8r didn't.
And you see invenerable there pausing his game on and off and running. That's a way to speed up the animation of the bosses who shake and slowly fade out of this screen. It just speeds that animation up just a little bit, but it does help considering there are several bosses who do that.
I always find it interesting to see what a player's going to do the first thing when they get underground. And penguin8r decided to go to the town down here to check the item shop, loot this, and is he checking employment dwarf? Yes, okay. Run valid. A lot of players will try to go for the free check in Sylph Cave and go back up to check the Sheila spots, or they'll go to the free check and land of summon monsters, which is what we may see penguin8r do next. Oh, no, going to crack some eggs, so we'll see this in action.
It is an interesting play to crack the eggs when you have all those key items free and available to you. You can easily hit that 10 key item, and this grind will take half the time, because once you have 10 key items, all experience is doubled.
Now, I think penguin8r may be wanting to get his party in shape to perhaps have a chance to challenge the summon monster bosses in Land of Summon Monsters at the Ashura and Leviathan spot. A lot of runners, when they check that free chest, they don't want to double dip Feymarch, so they want to kind of make sure that they can do all those checks at once. Or maybe, no, was just doing one egg to get Quake.
I mean, depending on who the boss is, that Quake may be enough to challenge those bosses. It all depends on who he finds. And there is no key item down in the land of summoned monsters. It is just a ninja shirt, which for a magic heavy team, not really very useful.
We'll see the bosses here in a moment as well.
You see penguin8r selling off a couple summons. While Rydia can be helpful with her summons, should you not have other mages, generally she is left behind in favor of better white mages for healing or better black mages for damage.
Yeah, we're seeing pretty even play coming up. All of our runners who made it underground went to check Tamra and then went straight to Feymarch. So this is seems like a Rubicons. Ooh, that's dicey.
That will be a very hard spot for Rubicon just because it is very fast, and that'll limit the ability to target him with ice without very precise timing.
Yeah, and both of those spots have very high stats, period. At this point in the play, our runners are going to hope that something they need isn't there and come back later if it turns out that something they need is there. You did notice penguin8r actually started the fight as well. That's because you can't tell from the sprite on that screen which battle it is actually going to be, whether it's going to be just Rubicon or all of the elements. So it's kind of like,
penguin8r giving Yang in the Silk Cave a nice smack upside the head with the pan, and he is given a ribbon for it. Once again, not a key item, but at least it is very helpful for his team. That will allow him to avoid a lot of different status effects, which could stop him from casting the spells he needs to finish certain fights.
Yeah, and a bonus of the ribbon is that it has very high magic defense, which actually is all that matters in the Zeromus fight. Zeromus only uses magic attacks, so we don't. By the time we get to the end of the game, we don't care about physical defense at all.
It'll be interesting to see if penguin8r grinds up a little bit, or any of the runners really, and tries to take on that Assurer, because as pointed out in chat by Supremacy, you cast Wall on her or Star Veil, and considering they have those spells available from Tala, they can do that and she will heal your party instead of herself, and she becomes a very easy fight.
We do get a pink tail from Sheila too. Unfortunately, that's not going to give an adamant armor. There are no adamant armors in the Zenith zone, so that flag is turned on. So they could turn in the pink tail and maybe find a good piece of armor, but it's a lot of time spent for not a guaranteed reward. So.
It looks like he may be going to try to take on the easier of the underground bosses, which is the Dwarf Castle, though that is 2 bosses and quite a long cutscene. But compared to fighting the Feymarch bosses, which he may not feel comfortable with yet, or running up and down the tower, it's probably the shortest of the checks available to him.
Yeah, it gives a character which kind of makes the dancing cutscene and the slow hand cutscene and the kind of hard first boss fight worth it if it's a character that is actually going to make you faster.
Ooh, I think I saw some Baron Guards dancing around back there.
The Hangry Canuck in chat asking if the warp glitch is on. No, the only glitch that's on in these league flags is the life glitch, so no free check here.
An important thing to know about officer and soldiers that are normally in the Kaipo Inn, which is what you see Penguin8r fighting right now, is if you take out their commanding officer, they will start to attack themselves because they don't know who to attack without someone telling them, hey, attack the enemies.
So the more you learn about Final Fantasy IV's combat system programming, the more you consider madness.
I like to think it's programmed insanity. They knew what they were doing. They wanted you to have some fun going, why is he attacking himself? Did I do that? Is that normal?
We're about to have a fan favorite thing happen here. Bigdunka said, screw the underground, I'm going to go check this twin harp, and is now in Cave Magnus. So soon we will get music once the audio is switched to Dunka and Dunka gets down.
Looks like the second fight down under the Dwarf Castle is the Magus Sisters, who can be a bit of an issue if he hadn't been smart and leveled up to get Quake, because that will go through the wall that they put up. As you see, it's just a one-shot kill with Quake.
Venerable also choosing to crack a few eggs once underground. I would say that is mostly also for Quake as well, although he's doing more than one, so maybe also trying to get some HP boosted a bit.
And we are about to have some very nice music played by Edward. I'm gonna go quiet for a bit. Seem that we're getting serenaded by some Zelda 2 Overworld music, which is among one of my favorite Zelda games, just for how different it is from the entire series.
It is beautiful, and right before that music started, Penguin8r showed us that it was the rat tail at Dwarf Castle, so another check where we might get a 2-for-1 key item here.
Makes you think, why is a small dwarf girl running around with a rat tail around her neck? I suppose of some of the things that we've seen, that's at least closer to normal, but that's a little morbid for a small girl to have.
Well, you know, dwarf culture might be different than above ground human culture. You never know.
That is true. Earlier tonight she was carrying a spear around her neck, so at least it's something that'll fit this time. She doesn't have to drag it around.
I think an airship hook could be a great accessory for a young girl.
And we have Bigdunka just easily putting down the two Baron guards. Even though they have high magic defense, he was able to use items to stop them and is rewarded with a power shirt.
What a shame. We do have Invenerable showing us the tower, though, where we see Dark Elf in the cannon room. That's going to go down real quick.
And we forgot to mention before, but the first item Sheila gives is the Artemis bow, which, should they keep Edward in their party, can make him a very viable physical damage character, because that is an extremely strong bow. And as I mentioned earlier, we have one of our community members who has been really pushing for Edward strats to be a thing, so he has a very viable item now.
Penguin8r doing the tail turn-ins, went ahead and turned into Pink Tail while he was there and got a Masamune for his trouble, but more importantly, the Rat Tail held the pass. This is really important in this flag set because if you have to do Moon Boss checks, even if you get Go Mode, you still have to come back underground to forge your crystal. So if you don't have the pass, that means you have to walk all the way down the Lunar Subterrane again. So Penguin8r is going to save a lot of time just having that pass in hand at the end of the game.
Like Invenerable is climbing all the way up to the top of the tower now. He's gonna give us a peek there. A fun fact, if you are going through the hook, you can actually see who it is that is up here, because just to the left of his screen, you can see just the outline of those last row of tiles. That is accessible on your way down through Ebelon Cave.
Of course, when it's a moon boss like this, that doesn't help. Now, our players do know a little bit because they've seen other moon bosses already in the sea, but it is Ogopogo, not too bad.
None of our runners, as pointed out by chat, have checked that Odin spot. There could be some value hiding behind the former King of Baron in his basement.
Once again, we're seeing our runners overlap. Bigdunka's going back to do Baron Castle, which he missed before. Of course, is going to be disappointed seeing the magma key there. Penguin8r's doing the tower, following in Invenerable's footsteps, and Castro is off to Dwarf Castle to kind of repeat what we've already seen from Penguin8r. So soon these checks are going to be overlapping, and it becomes more and more likely that progression is on one of the spots that none of our runners have showed us yet.
You see Edward on Venerable's screen doing 1100 damage to Ogopogo with his shiny bow. He is really turned from someone who was just staring at the enemies a couple fights ago to his main damage dealer.
So, Penguin8r did not go up to do the boss at the top of the tower. He just did the cannon room and left. We're going to see if it pays off here with the item, which is Luca Key. So opening up that sealed cave, maybe we'll see a save scum to see what's up. It's one of the few checks you can do where you can know what the item is before you have to fight the boss involved.
Top of the tower, Venerable finds darkness, which opens up a lot more boss checks and another character check. So there may be both the legend and the adamant, which are needed to forge that crystal on the moon. We will hopefully see shortly.
Yeah, the moon has 7 key item checks under this flag set, so Penguin8r could have made a horrible mistake by not going to the top of the tower here. It was a risky play, but you know, if it had turned out the other way, then you never know. It could still turn out the other way.
And another one of the community favorites is Cave Bahamut, where rumor has it there is always value.
Yeah, I mean, the large amount of key item checks on the moon is a blessing and a curse, because if it happens that what you need isn't there, then you've wasted pretty much the maximum amount of time doing a long checks that take a long time to get to and are hard to fight.
For doing those checks, I need to know, are you a fan of doing the moon inside to out, or are you a fan of starting from the outermost boss and working your way all the way into the middle?
So I'm of two minds on this, because I always go top down, but it almost always ends up a mistake. So Yeah, when you see a lot of our top players doing bottom up, even though it seems counterproductive because you walk a long way to start with without getting anything done, but the checks are just so much more dense at the bottom. I feel like, especially if you know there's only 1 or 2 key items left that you need, that bottom up is the better choice.
The moon still has a couple bosses that can be really scary. I mean, we haven't seen Wyvern, Golbez, or Dark Knight Cecil. Any of those on the moon is a pretty scary fight to have to fight that late in the game.
Penguin8r showing us some really great backup strats here. He went and checked the Luca key, found out it wasn't something he wanted, and he had a save by the tower that he went back to, so he can now check the top. He's going to be rewarded with that Darkness Crystal.
I've seen runners make this mistake in the past. Luckily, they've already found D-Mist. But should you be running this game yourself, do remember to check who that boss is, because you see the key item first and then the boss. So if you have not found D-Mist, you may want to just poke your head out the door, even if you don't want the item, just to make sure you're not missing another key item. And of course, the key item that they are leaving behind, both Invenerable and Penguin8r, is the Excalibur sword, which is normally what you get when you combine the Adamant and the Legend sword.
It's interesting to see Inven going to Dwarf Castle here. I don't know. It seems to me if once you get that Darkness Crystal, you may want to go check a lot, but maybe he wants to kind of eliminate his options and absolutely know that he's kind of doing the right choice here. Or maybe he just needs to shop, but we've yet to see. Meanwhile, bigdunka's fighting the Gauntlet in Perrin's basement at the Odin spot, which is unfortunate, but if it happens to be an item we need, then it could be good, because a lot of runners will just reset out of the Gauntlet hoping that they're not going to have to actually need it.
And while this is a spot that can often cause quite some issue, the HP of a spot is divided among the characters that now inhabit it, so Odin's HP is divided among the Gauntlet, making it where Quake can take out this spot much easier, because he just has to cast essentially one Quake a fight, and occasionally a general may survive, and he's just going to pop a coffin just to erase the general as well, making sure he gets that full experience and finishes the fight much quicker.
Yeah, at this point, I can't fault Dunka for going after this fight, because he's got to still try to eke some value out of the fact that he's done Baron. And, no one else has checked it yet, so this could be a good play.
Invenerable is deciding to cash in that Darkness Crystal and head straight to the moon. He wants to see who's up there, maybe check Cape Bahama and see what's in the shops up there as well.
Yeah, I mean, none of our players have Zeromus ready HP levels, so you would think, oh, the character they get on the moon is going to be so far behind, but it's actually not true, because there's still boss fights to do that give a lot of EXP, there's still grinding to do, and characters who are low enough will get an EXP bonus until they catch up to within your average party level. So that's just a quality of life change that Boardface, the developer of Free Enterprise, made to bless our players.
Apparently the moon has blessed Invenerable with another Edward. I don't know why he's also hanging out on the moon, but I guess he just likes to be around.
Edward X will probably be getting thrown away. Yes, and there he goes. Goodbye.
We may see rncastro deciding to challenge those Fey March bosses with the extra fighting he's been doing. since he did not check here initially. He got the levels that he may decide to go for, especially seeing a vanilla Ashura.
Yeah, it would be good if he can crunch through these and show us, because this is the last 2 available spots on Earth. If we don't find something we need here, then we know everything is on the moon.
I feel like most runners are gonna see that Rubicon and just go, I think I'll hope that we don't have to go near him, because at such a fast spot, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, honestly, Rubicon and Kegnazo are some of the worst bosses to see down there in the Summon Monster Ruler's room.
Another important flag which we did not discuss is the AA flag, the Agility Agnostic. What that does is it makes it so that whoever is in your middle slot determines essentially the amount of turns and the battle speed of the enemies, because this game uses relative agility. So it looks like Invenerable is throwing his Tella, who is a naturally very slow character, right into that middle slot, and is probably just gonna use that to slow down the enemies.
Yeah, and in the original game, the relative agilities are all based on Cecil, but in Free Enterprise, we wanted to give an option in case you had Cecil in your party and you did not want to have to basically nerf his speed, because he's a very excellent damage dealer. So we put that flag in so that you can have your cake and eat it too, in a way. You can get your very powerful Cecil and also have a slow agility anchor.
And you see Invenerable fighting the King Ryu fight, which is one of, if not the highest XP fight you can get from normal monsters. And he is using the life glitch to respawn one of them. And the reason that glitch works is all enemies have their vitality stat set to 0. That's not a fun sentence to say. And vitality is what determines how much HP you are revived with. Since it's 0, the enemy gets revived and instantly dies again, but the game counts it as another kill on that enemy. So they're essentially getting free experience.
Yeah, and this is where Tella's paying his weight in gold here now, because Tella has weak, which automatically brings the enemy down to single-digit HP levels. And these fights would have been kind of long without them, but because we have Tella, they're very efficient.
And that was a very clever use of the J items, specifically the Succubus, which will steal mana from one of, or whoever it targets. And what Invenerable did was he used it on Malum to give Tella more MP so that he can cast that Fatal and get that guaranteed easy kill on the first King Ryu.
Yeah, Weak is a very MP-intensive spell, and one of the main downfalls of Tella is he never gains MP through level ups. He is stuck with just 90 MP forever.
In the vanilla game, that is because he casts the spell Medio and uses it, and it ends up taking his life, so they don't want the players to be able to cast that spell. Unfortunately, even if you trigger that cutscene that he would normally cast it on, he does not go into his old man range, and you do not get to see him cast it unless you happen to find a Soma drop, in which case it will not kill him and will just use the normal amount of MP.
Ashura in the land of summon monsters, holding only the ultimate troll, Drain Spear.
As if most of our community doesn't like throwing away the Drain Spear, they don't even have Kane to use it.
to going back to the MP use, of course, to put it in perspective, the normal endgame MP for your casters that are intended to be in your party is somewhere between 400 and 500 MP. So the just 90 is not cutting it to actually do anything.
And rncastro has decided to take on the Rubicon just to see if he can make this work, and I have faith in him to be able to pull this one off.
Rubicon's kind of a double threat here because Rubicon has strong physical attacks as well as a counterattacking with Fire 2 on the entire party if you hit him with ice at the wrong time. That's why you're going to see, because this spot is extremely fast, as Tower mentioned when our runners were first finding it, the glare is going to one-shot, but otherwise, yeah, there comes the reset. Because that Rubicon is very fast, it's very hard to time your hits to when the cloak is open. So Quake is the better way because you don't have to time it.
For those of you who watched our last race, you got to see a good way around that. Some of our runners had a cane with Blizzard Spear, and his cape does not deflect physical status or physical elements. It only absorbs the magic spells of ice. So if you happen to have someone with a frost type weapon, they can easily still do the double damage that is necessary to take him out. Otherwise, you're stuck doing normal damage, and it can take a very long time in that spot.
So penguin8r here is using a very advanced strat. So we got done talking about the life glitch earlier, but there's a way around it. The life 2 spell actually brings enemies back with full health, regardless of their vitality stat being 0. So you can actually bring them back with full health and kill them again infinitely. So we've seen him actually do it a few times now in this King Ryu fight. He's looking for getting almost all of his levels right now. Using the fact that he has 2 Tellus to his advantage to do it.
Invenerable has decided to start challenging some moon bosses, and he finds Water Hag, which at his levels should be a free fight because all you need to do is land 3 hits and that scripted battle is over. There is no need to do any specific amount of damage.
That's going to be a big chunk of EXP for not a lot of effort. At this point, we're seeing our players who maybe were a little bit behind now starting to catch up. They're getting the non-essential checks, what we know are the non-essential checks, out of the way now. And I think pretty much all of our players who are not already there are going to be heading to the moon here quite shortly.
Invenerable has found the adamant, which is, once again, half of what's needed to forge that crystal. That was in the default D lunar spot. Now he is challenging what I believe is the plague spot to see what he can find. And this is another free fight. It is the King and Queen Eblin who will cast very, very weak magic and then just expire.
And this is part where your choice of routing we can see really matters, because Inven, we were talking about top versus bottom first earlier. Inven went to do bottom first and found not 1, but 2 free bosses and half of go mode down there. Whereas if you did top down, these would have been the second to last boss checks you did. So we can see bottom up seems to be good right now. Because even if the item you need is also at the top, you've already gained all this free experience down here. It's just a like a pinata of character strength. So it will make the rest of the fights that they have to do very easy.
For that free fight, he gets just experience and a spoon. And as you mentioned before, we do not have the flag on that would allow Edward to equip that spoon. there is a flag that will allow Edward to equip that and do a very high amount of damage. Though with his Artemis bow, he seems to be doing just fine the way he is.
Yeah, so at this point, it seems like the only way to make this seed longer is if they happen to find the Earth Crystal up here, and that's where the Legend Sword is.
Ooh, in the pale dim spot, they have found Plague.
That's a bummer. Now, all of our runners here know several different strategies to deal with Plague, but it would be nice to see Plague at a lower HP spot than this, to be honest.
It looks like Invenerable has chosen the full frontal assault method of dealing with him. Because Plague will not attack you. He casts Doom on you, which after 10 ticks will just cast Fatal on your entire party. So he is hoping to just take out all of Plague's HP before those 10 ticks go down.
Now, due to the way the ATB system works in this game, which is based on relative agilities rather than like bars that fill up, there is a little bit of wizardry you can do in this battle. If you have a slow enough anchor and fast enough characters, you can actually make it so that the Doom never actually kills your characters. It just never gets a chance to activate. And I think that's what Inven's backup strat here is. You can see he's kamikazing Tella. That's in order to resurrect Tella to force Plague to redo the count.
Right, because anytime a character is not doomed, ooh, he gets an Earth Crystal. That may be a fun trek back all the way to Earth. But anytime Plague sees one of the heroes not with the count above him, he will recast it on the entire party. So if you keep killing or reviving someone, it's an infinite cast. If you're fast enough, you might get a wall up, and it'll just cause him again to infinite cast, because the fatal counter can be reflected back to Plague.
And this is where Invenerable is going to make a choice. We see him heading to the Wyvern spot, so he's going to finish out the moon before he checks that Earth Crystal. And he's got the Wyvern check and the check at the very top, which is pretty much exit, come back in, and go to the side to get it. So we'll see what's at Wyvern spot here and see how far Invenerable is going to have to go in order to get go mode.
What's very surprising is we have 2 people on the moon, and nobody's even looked in Cave Bahamut.
You know, and Inven is the one who's always telling me that there's always value in Cave Bahamut, but he hasn't checked it yet. Come on, Inven.
You see Invenerable here, once again, using that reflected magic to stop the scripts from triggering. Because the elements fight, after doing so much HP, will trigger to the next element. So he uses those bounce strats to make sure that it stays as Mylon Z, who is weak to both white and nuke, as opposed to causing him to switch. And for that lovely reflect strat, you see the Legend Sword. Inven is now in go mode.
So we get both halves of go mode, plus a few free bosses on the moon. This is a lot of value on the moon this time. So Inven taking a real early lead here because his parties are almost ready. That HP levels are very good. Has all the spells he needs. It's he's gonna go get it.
Penguin8r will probably be not that far behind, but the big difference is Penguin8r has the pass, whereas Invenerable does not. So Invenerable has quite a deal more walking to do than Penguin8r will have to, because Penguin8r can just go into Troy, catch that pass in, and be warped right to that final fight.
And I gotta say, I have seen these players do an awful lot of Zeromus fights, and Penguin8r in particular is extremely good at fighting Zeromus, so this is definitely going to be close if they enter the battle near the same time.
Yeah, it depends on how quickly he takes down elements and forges that crystal, but you know, he will most likely do exactly what Invenerable did. take out the elements, and then warp on down.
Dunka finally getting the darkness crystal, so we'll be going to do those checks next.
CR and Castro just trying to get some levels. I'd be willing to bet he's leaving that Tella dead so that he can use him as an agility anchor.
Now we also have to look here between Castro and Dunka, who are not yet going to be in go mode, which way they're going to try to decide to do the move, whether they go top first or bottom. Bottom would be a little faster at this point because then they will not have to check the very top spot. They get to basically get a check for free there. But to be honest, also, we have to think about the fact that this is part of the larger Highway to the Zima Zone tournament. All of these players have to play 4 matches in this phase of the tournament, and bigdunka actually came into this match with an advantage. He's already played one of his matches and got second place and has 3 points already. So clinching a third place finish here would basically allow Dunka to be the same as if he finished, 2 matches in third and second, respectively. So they're still fighting for points. Position is everything here, and even if you don't get first or second, eking out 2 points rather than 1 point can be the difference at the end of this.
And we see Invenerable making that big walk, as I mentioned before. He's got to walk all the way down past where he was before to start that final fight. And it looks like penguin8r just now entered go mode. So we have a very close race at hand here. You'll see the difference of time that pass makes.
bigdunka, meanwhile, going to check the Luca cave. This is where the heartache comes in big matches like this, is when we, the viewers, know where go mode is, and we know that we already have people heading to Zeromus, and you see players going down rabbit holes that do not matter. But there's nothing you can do about it, right? Because we have the knowledge. They don't have it.
For them, it's still a gamble. They can only do what they think is going to be their best bet.
And we're at an hour 14 minutes right now. Most of our top players in here, depending on the seed, of course, we would expect to start seeing finishes around this time. It's a very common top, first place finish time for this flag set. So right now, I would say our runners who have not yet completed, and even invenerable, who's currently in the lead, should be sweating, because right now they're thinking to themselves, with their knowledge, someone else could be in Zeromus right now. I don't know. They could have beat me there. They could be fighting it right now. I just haven't seen they're done yet.
Right. It looks like penguin8r is choosing to use this time to get a little more levels, because he's probably just not quite where he needs to be to survive a big bang in case he does not nerf it. So he is just trying to get another couple King Ryu kills to get his party up to snuff.
Yeah, with this caster party and reflect strats, we're looking for 2 things for Zeromus. We're looking for HP levels, and we're looking for ability to cast nuke. Now, we're here, Tower. Would you like to do the honors for our favorite question?
Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
That's right. We have a randomized final boss sprites inserted into the game by our workshop helper, Scala Kitty, I see present in the chat. So we'll see what it is tonight. It's one of our favorite moments of any raid. His true colors emerged.
Queenless. She's painting the heroes red.
Hey, and with the palette swaps that have also been put in the game by Scala Kitty, we could have had some red-suited party members tonight. Just a little unlucky, just Tella with the correct garb for this fight. We see Castro also making the Luca cave play. Tragedy.
So you see here, Invenerable is throwing out a Silk Web and gets lucky because the Silk Web will trigger a counter nuke, which is then bounced off of his Porum and reflected back to Queenless. What that also does is it causes the Zeromus to essentially reset its magic power, and that nerfs the Big Bang, which is an attack that will hit the entire party. So that next attack from Zeromus does not do nearly as much damage. It does 100 as opposed to 1 to 2,000.
Yes, if you mistime this and get a full power Big Bang, it could be disaster for this party because a high damage roll Big Bang can deal around 2,200 damage, and you can see Inven only has 2 party members that barely have that HP level, and with the HP sap effect, you're not likely to actually be at that level. So a mistimed nerf with a high roll Big Bang can be an instant wipe for this party.
And you see Invenerable smartly hide the Edward, knowing that he probably can't tank it because Edward does not have the greatest magic defense. But rather than sacrificing a valuable chemist, he just tells Edward, for the time being, it's best to hide.
We now have penguin8r using the power of that pass to go straight to the Z fight. And you'll see a lot of our top players here are very comfortable with reflex strats and their nerfing timing. Especially when you think one mistake can spell a party wipe, but no sweat it for these runners.
And it would appear that Invenerable has chosen not to heal up the Tella, most likely because after that Cure 4, he is essentially out of mana, and he is going to be nothing but, he can be useful for nothing but taking a nap.
Which is actually useful because if you haven't noticed yet, magic damage in this game is split between the amount of targets. So if you're trying to heal your party and you want to all target it, it's better to have less party members, especially if the others aren't contributing.
And that looks like it's a GG for Invenerable, taking down Queenless at a time of 1:19:38.
GG's to Invenerable on that. That's going to earn 4 points for Inven going into his next match.
And we see penguin8r following not too far behind him with the reflect strats. He has a slightly different party, and he already has one Tella that is taking a nap on this fight. But judging by his HP, he's likely using that Tella to use the agility anchor that we mentioned before, which will slow down how often Zeromus is using that Big Bang attack, making it easier to nerf.
Supremacy mentioning in chat, he doesn't think Penguin is on battle speed 1. You will see this in reflex strats a lot, even from top players, because turning the battle speed down will make the timing a much greater window in order to nerf Big Bang. A lot of runners at least like to turn it to battle speed 2.
So do you think that we'll be able to get Invenerable in here for an entry? I see Pixel Tamer in chat is asking what pause buffering does. It is used to cut down the time of some animation. I don't know what it does for spells, to be honest, but I know that for some of the bosses, it will allow them to cut down the time it takes for the boss to disappear from the screen when they're shaking back and forth.
Right now, we're just this is going to be a race between Dunka and Castro to see who gets their Legend Sword and Adamant and gets there beforehand. Dunka has a little bit of an advantage here because he's already on the moon, which is the correct spot. So we shall see how it goes. And we are now joined by Invenerable. Congrats, Inven, on your first place finish of this match.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
GG, sir. So, how do you feel about this seed?
I really liked the start of it. I'm a big fan of starts that have underpowered parties and kind of rude bosses, just because I feel that I can capitalize on those kind of situations. But then when I got to the moon and found free boss after free boss after free boss, I got a little paranoid. And judging by penguin8r's finish there in the SRL channel, I can see I had good reason to be nervous.
You guys were actually pretty neck and neck for a little while. The difference is he managed to find the pass, but he stopped to grind. Otherwise, you two probably would have been entering the Z fight within a minute or so of each other.
Oh, gotcha. Where did you find the pass?
The one key item I did not write down.
It was at Dwarf Castle.
Oh, gotcha. Were there any good characters there?
No,
Yeah, that's a good question.
It was another Tella, I believe.
All the Tellas. Cool. Yeah, with that early full moon and ninja sword, part of me narrowly went to check Cave Evelyn just in case there was an edge there, but I don't know. I didn't want to go there and just have nothing but disappointment upon diving into the cave, so just kind of went where the item density was, and it paid off this seed.
Well, GG to you, sir, and it was a lot of fun watching you run that race and pulling off some of the very interesting strats. I like the succubus on your own party to make sure that your Tella had enough MP for those grinds.
Oh yeah, I learned that trick from Rivers McCown. He always buys a stack of succubi, and I am 100% on board with that. They're cheap, they're immensely useful. Buy your succubi when you see them, y'all.
With that first place finish, and then how do you feel about your next 3 matches?
Well, I have the next one Wednesday night, so that's still pressing down on me. If I can manage a really good finish in that one, I'll be willing to relax a little bit for the next 2. But for now, definitely want a lot more than, let's see, it'd be a minimum of 7 points now. Yeah, definitely want more. More points, please.
Well, good luck in your future races, and thank you for coming in to chat with us.
Hey, thank y'all. Have a good night, fellas.
You too.
And as Invenerable mentioned, penguin8r has finished in second place with a time of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 28 seconds, just 3 minutes after Invenerable. So it's very tough at the top, you can say.
We are now joined by penguin8r. So, how do you feel after seeing in an almost entirely mage seat?
I couldn't be happier, to be honest. I certainly love my mages. The one thing was the twin harp check I was avoiding all game because mages don't do so well when the enemy boss is magic immune.
Yeah, we were getting kind of scared that there was going to be an item there, and we noticed that everyone was doing their best to avoid that because the party just was not giving you any chance really to go in there till later in the game.
Yeah, I almost went down the Evelyn route just to get a character there, hoping I'd get someone physical. But worst case, once done with the moon, then I'd have enough levels just to have Porum use arrows or something.
Penguin8r, I want to point out to the chat while you're here with us how insane this time is for how many checks you got done. You got 16 out of 17 key items and did almost all the checks and still managed to be right nipping at Invenerable's heel.
Yeah, thank you. If I can toot my own horn a little bit, I actually thought I played this nearly perfectly to my ability, and so for Inven to come out a few minutes ahead of me, it's mad props to him. Of course, he's always a great racer, always a pleasure racing him.
So we have a question from Chaffee that I myself am not entirely sure of. We saw you during the Zero fight using the pause buffering. Do you want to kind of give a heads up as to why you were pause buffering during those nukes?
I've been avoiding talking about that because I'm not entirely sure.
Fair.
The Japanese translated task notes for Vanilla Fantasy 4 suggest that pausing at the right times might actually save a few frames. So I just kind of do it kind of superstitious. I haven't really timed it out to see if I'm actually saving any time.
Well, good luck is good luck, and you got a second place finish with it, so something's clearly working in your favor.
Now, Penguin8r, you came into this match with one match of this phase already completed. So how are you feeling now with a total of 4 points going into your last your last two matches?
Yeah, definitely happy to rebound a bit from the fourth place finish with this second place, but certainly not out of the woods yet. I still gotta work my hardest in my remaining two matches to get out more points and make sure I make those playoffs.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us, and GG's on gaining 3 more points on your way to the playoff rounds.
Thank you.
GG, sir, and we look forward to seeing more from you pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so now we have bigdunka cleaning up the moon. Castro's also on the moon, getting some levels. So we're about to see them start getting what they need. In the meantime, though, I do want to mention we do have a whole team making this happen tonight. In addition to the entire staff who run the community and who have been great setting up this tournament and the Hopen tournament, which is basically for people who didn't qualify for this tournament with the same flags. But tonight in particular, we have H2TZZ on the item tracker. That's the light up that you see, so you can actually tell what our players have had. There's actually a person on the other end paying attention and marking that for everybody. Tonight, that's H2TZZ for us, so thank you there. I've got my co-commentator Tower Sheep here and the restreamer Risley EU, who's actually the one who's putting all these streams together so you can see the race format and we don't have to like worry about anything going on behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone there. And I will say matches of this tournament are not all on this channel. In fact, the next match is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the RPG Limit Break channel. That's going to be Baka Shinobi, H2TZZ, Hippos, and Dusty Griff, who is our reigning champion from the World Series of Fire Emblem earlier in the year. So be checking that out too. There's a lot of matches going on. And if you're in our Discord, you can find the link to get the full schedule.
We do very much encourage everyone to come on down to our Discord as well, because it is a good time, whether you are very familiar with randomizers and want to get involved in this one, or if this is your first randomizer. The free enterprise community is all about just trying new things, lots of tutorial videos if you want to see them, and there's even a special channel just for new people to say, hey, I see this thing, how do I do it? And the community is always more than happy to help.
Yes, and I will plug separately again that the Hopen, what we're calling basically is the open tournament that we're having. The signups are available now, and I would suggest that anyone who has played this game at all or likes these tournament matches should play it. It'll have the bonus of getting you more familiar with this tournament set as well, so you can follow the matches a little better and maybe enter the next time we have a big tournament like this.
As we see here, we have Bigdunka still running around trying to do some cleanup, and it would seem that Castro has completed his grind and is now just looking to start these boss fights without realizing just how free some of them are.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to keep track. I mean, you see everything our players are holding in their brains here, like which checks are available, where they should go next, what's the better mathematical play, and then to also have to keep track of, oh, how many free bosses versus hard bosses are there left, and what are my chances of getting one of those at this spot? There's a lot of information.
Right. It's very smart move to do these grinds that they're doing, because there's also several scary bosses that we just didn't see this seed, thankfully, so that they may be thinking, oh, I'm gonna run into something I really don't want to see, and they're just really hoping that these checks are exactly what they're gonna end up getting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pure luck that that Rubicon fight in the underground wasn't required and no one actually cleared it. So, that could have been a very rude surprise at the end here for our runners, but luckily was not needed.
As we saw Invenerable doing, you now see Bigdunka doing the same reflect strat on the elements, which is once again to prevent them from transforming into any of the other elements, as Mylon Z is possibly the easiest of them to take down.
Yeah, and something we haven't mentioned yet, just because we had so much more going on in this seed, is the armor available to this party and the weapons, as far as magic power boosting items go, have not been great. I mean, this is an all mage party, and besides the ribbon, they haven't really found any great armor for their mages. They're making by with not the best.
rncastro just doing a little bit of waiting around, waiting for that scripted King and Queen Emblem fight to end. And it looks like Bigdunka is in go mode, and he, having seen both dot guns, knows that rncastro can't be that far behind, so he's making that run for it. And he has the pass, so he won't have to make that big walk down the moon again.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, if Bigdunka gets third here, if just counting players who have completed the same amount of matches, he would still be 1 point in front of Penguin.
It seems Bigdunka is making a very interesting play. He is now using the Sand Ruby because the twins, starting off, actually have a very low agility. So he will most likely be using his newest twin as an agility anchor, because they are going to be unleveled, having not been a part of any of the other grinds. He's really making the most of the items that he has to make sure that he can get this Z fight off without too big of an issue.
And to get even deeper into the rankings here, as of this match being completed, the players that have completed 2 matches, Bigdunka, if he gets third place here, will actually still be in second place overall in the tournament, which puts him in a pretty strong position. So 2 more matches to play for Bigdunka after this, and 3 more matches to play for rncastro after this.
And you see here rncastro doing what we mentioned before, where you keep one of your party members dead, and you'll see Plague recast the Doom if he survives to his next turn.
Dunka just getting the housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll be heading to Zeromus. Now, Dunka, just like penguin8r, did do Dwarf Castle, did turn in the Rat Tail, so does have the pass, so is going to be able to go straight there. Castro also has the pass, so not going to be at quite a disadvantage. In fact, interestingly enough, Invenerable, who was in first tonight, was the only one who did not find the pass.
He definitely took the longer way. He took the hook down to the bottom as well, and he still managed to show that even if you use the hook and not the Magnet Key, you can still stay competitive. So there's no one move that is a guaranteed loss. You know, you can still recover even if you take the longer way around certain obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, bigdunka was still neck and neck with Invenerable and penguin8r until later when they made different routing decisions as far as the moon went. So basically, yeah, especially if there's a boss that you can cream at the upper babble spot, it may just be faster to do that sometimes. It's interesting because usually I'm looking for more finishes right now, because in our normal community races, which we in general have 3 times a week when a tournament's not running, we've had, you know, sometimes we have 20 to 30 players, but with just these 4, it's you know, just a little more chill.
It definitely makes calling out who's winning and what's going on the screen a little bit easier when you don't have to worry about all the other not dones coming in from the chat.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us to check out the tournament, also check out those community races. A lot of them are canceled at the moment just because we have so much tournament stuff going on, but we do in general run community races that are open to anyone, with different flag sets every time, so it keeps it fresh for everybody, and doesn't really put anyone at a good advantage or another. But in addition, we have Seeds of the Week that you can try that is more like, it's a race, but not everybody does it at the same time of the week, and those are usually like can have some novelty flag sets that are really fun to try out. So there's a lot of variability in this game as far as the settings go. If you haven't tried it yet, I can really suggest getting into it. You can pretty much do it however you want.
You see Castro with his high levels just easily cleaning up those elements. He didn't even worry about them transforming into the other elements. That unnerfed Big Bang for bigdunka, though, doing massive damage to his party.
Yeah, the only good thing about the fact that Dunka had to go down a few more rabbit holes was at least Dunka's levels are like pretty obscene when it comes right down to it. I mean, almost 3,000 health on his Rosa, which is way over level for Zeromus. So should be able to recover from this quite nicely and just keep it going. But you're right, if that unnerfed Big Bang had hit Invenerable or penguin8r's party, they would have just wiped automatically. So it just goes to show there's some risk-reward factor in the different strategies.
And since Edward does not have magic, he's choosing just to leave Edward down because that's that many less command prompts he's gonna have to go through in order to do this, in order to do all the reflecting. He won't have to tell Edward to hide and then tell Edward to parry. He just leaves him dead, and he's also leaving dead his agility anchor because she is not going to have nearly enough magic to do anything. Invenerable telling us in chat that apparently the Earth Crystal held not 1, but 2 Fusoyas. That would have been a very interesting play had someone gotten both of them.
It does make you wonder if doing the tower and doing both bosses and waiting for the cutscenes would still actually be faster, because you could replace your Tellas with those Foos and actually have 5 contributing party members in the final battle. I'd like to see the over-under. I think it'd probably still be faster to do it with just the Tellas, but, you know, you never know.
I think had they done the Earth Crystal in lieu of some of the grinding, it would have been good, but after they had already done all the grinding, it just wasn't worth it to sit through all those cutscenes.
And it just goes to show as well, like, when you get a key item is going to change your decision-making completely, because they didn't get Earth Crystal until they were on the moon already and Zeromus ready. So at that point, what in the early game would be a no-brainer, because you get 2 characters and a key item check, and you get the exit spell for Rosa, and the late game is maybe not such a no-brainer anymore.
Right, and we unfortunately had a reset out of bigdunka. I think that Big Bang hit him a little too hard and he ran out of non-mana related healing. So we may have a race on our hands again. Looks like Castro is just gearing up his party since he has everything he needs to be in go mode. He has the pass, he's just organizing his inventory to make this Z fight just a little bit faster.
Yeah, and this is also where even the mage party, the agility anchoring can really help you out, because you see Zeromus has in his rotation of moves the move called Black Hole, which eliminates all buffs on your party, including Reflect. So you have to stop dealing damage, re-reflect, and start pumping it out again. So every turn that Zeromus gets slows you down more and more.
So you see RNCastro actually looking at the stats of all of his characters and using that ninja helm to change the agility if he feels it necessary, because Zeromus does not necessarily need your agility to be the lowest. It has to be the closest to 14. And you want it to be a multiple of 14 or 1 or 2 numbers over, because if you his speed is set on that kind of a scale where if you have a agility of 14, that's his slowest. However, if you make a mistake and have a multiple of 13 instead, or just 1 point under that multiple of 14, you're going to end up with the fastest Zeromus, which is going to make his big bangs come at you hard and fast and be almost impossible to nerf.
Yeah, so it's 28 is kind of the break point for Zeromus, where if you're under 28, it's you're okay as if you're close to that number, but if you're over 28, now he's fast again. So is small stat differences when you're around the area of 28 can basically give you a big problem. And basically, as Supremacy's saying in chat, it's not necessarily Zeromus completely that you're worried about. It's getting Zeromus to a breakpoint and then having the slowest possible person at that breakpoint to make your other characters faster. So having an agility anchor at the correct number doesn't really help you as much if that character is faster than your other party members, because they're just going to be slow now.
Right. Looks like within not too far of each other, both bigdunka and Castro are in the vulnerable stage of this Z fight. So let's see if Castro can sneak this one right out from under Dunka.
Now here's an interesting fact. I'm not sure if Dunka just didn't have the agility numbers he wanted, or he forgot to move his characters around, but he's got this default level Palom that he picked up on purpose, but doesn't have that Palom in the middle spot, which is where it needs to be determining the agility. So I'm not sure if he just decided that he had better numbers with the other one, or if he forgot to swap them.
He originally swapped them, and he may just have forgotten after he reset. So originally that 100 Palom was in the middle slot.
Yeah, and we saw in Dunka's first round that Zeromus was pretty fast, was getting off multiple big bangs, whereas in Invenerable and Penguin8r's fights, we only saw 1 or 2 big bangs total. That just is this kind of the power that you can find with very fast menuing and very good agility anchoring. Now at this point, these players entered the fight at very similar times, so it's all going to come down to who can pump out damage faster and not have to heal as much. And we can see Castro has actually 1 extra useful party member than Dunka does, so that could be the difference here.
Definitely, having just that little bit extra damage can end up pushing you over. And Dunka seems to be having a problem with really inconveniently timed black holes erasing his shields, or his walls rather, which are making so that he keeps nuking his wall target.
This is getting kind of tense here. Dunka's kind of stuck in a loop with the middle Palom dying, and Castro's kind of motoring on here and hasn't been in too much danger yet.
You can really see the importance of why Castro was looking at his agility numbers and switching some people around. Making that got him that 3rd place victory. GG to Mr. Castro.
Very nice, and we could even see with the routing being a little less convenient for Castro and some pitfalls stepped in, still within like around 24 minutes of Invenerable and Penguin8r. So it's very quick still, even considering basically the full clear that was done by Castro. Very nice for Castro to be able to come back from behind like that. During the moon phase and the grinding phase, it looked like maybe he wasn't going to make it, but very good play and very good setup for the fight. Just a little bit of extra strategy and having to have the right numbers on his side.
And hopefully with just a little bit more, we're gonna see bigdunka come in 4th place in a matter of seconds. That Zeromus should not have much more life.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate side effect of the reflex strat, which by the way, the players are doing that so that they don't get counterattacked by Zeromus. The HP refill of Zeromus is also technically a counterattack, so if you reflect a spell, he doesn't get to do it, but a side effect of that is we never get to see the classic, you're at the end of the battle phase of Zeromus casting video, which is basically like you're in the home stretch of the battle, and why the emoticon of our channel has meteors in the background of the TG.
And we are joined now by rncastro. Do you want to give us your thoughts on how this seed played out?
While we are seeing if Castro can get sorted in here in the interview room, it's looking at like bigdunka finally got some backup. We got some Life 2 action get saved by a black hole here, so can heal up. Trying to use Cure 3s rather than using the last little bit of MP. A Life 2, unfortunately, is a really MP-heavy spell, so can't really just use it consistently. We see the white there had been queued up on a dead Palom.
Big Bang, although strong, was not enough to take down his party, and he is gonna... Seems that he is gonna just keep trucking along and trying to reflect those spells and take him out before another Big Bang pops out.
Yeah, Zilch6 in chat mentioning a direct cast will probably kill, but the problem is if bigdunka hasn't been doing his math right and it doesn't kill, now you have the health refill, and this party doesn't have the legs to get past the second half of the battle if that happens, so not going to risk it, going to get the reflect back up, get the whites and nukes going again, and see if he can knock her out. Ooh, this could be bad. And with that wipe, bigdunka has forfeited. Looks like it should be noted in this tournament, forfeits count the same as a last place finish, so Dunka's still going to get the point. It's just not wanting to fight that final fight again. And that still puts bigdunka tied with penguin8r currently after 2 matches. So not the worst thing that could happen, but of course was probably looking to get more points from this race.
Indeed. And I wonder if bigdunka will be up for a quick interview, see how he feels on this. And while we have this bit of downtime, once again, I would just like to thank the Restream team, which is Wallermaster, my co-commentator, Rieslew, sorry for butchering your name, I am really bad at names, and Ikir, who did the tracking. You guys were phenomenal, and the tracking especially was great because there were a couple times I missed things, and being able to see those items light up, I was able to call out what it is that I missed.
Yes, thank you for everyone for watching this tournament match and the previous one. If you happen to watch the first match tonight, we did have a doubleheader. And if you stuck with us for the whole time, thank you. We really appreciate it and hope you had a good time. As we've been mentioning at the rest of the night, this is an ongoing tournament, but there is more if you want to get involved with the community. We have the community races, and we have the Hummingway Open, aka the Hopin, which anyone can join, and is this exact same flags. So you can be a part of the action with a little bit less pressure.
And as we've mentioned, please feel free to drop by the Discord. While you may have seen some very high-level play, your first seed may not go quite as smoothly as what you got to see here, but you have the whole community here to help you get through it, and we'll make sure that you have a good time doing it.
once again, thanks for viewing. And it looks like we're going to send you all over to the Randomania channel, where another of our randomizer family, Dragon Warrior Randomizer, is being played. So if you want to continue your randomizer spree tonight, stick around. We'll send you over there.